oh, 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 oh. How do I want to open this up? Poor Choices Kitchen. Summer is quickly approaching, and that means we got to get this pumpkin ready to turn into a carriage. Our glass slippers today are going to be these pork spare ribs that we're going to turn into some delicious sweet and heat magic. I don't know if that's the way I wanted to say that. Hey man, it's barbecue season. We gotta get ready for the big dance. Two of the easiest things that you can start out with that are inexpensive and a great way just to kind of learn the basics of barbecue is a pork butt, because pork butts are cheap, and ribs. There's a lot of ways to make ribs, and today we're gonna kind of go with like a hybrid competition / backyard barbecue style. Because at the end of the day, barbecuing should just be fun. I mean, you're just kicking it, you're just drinking. Like I got me a big ass glass of bourbon at 10 o'clock in the morning. I mean, who says we're not gonna have a good time, right? These are spare ribs, meaning all the meat is on them. You can buy these St. Louis style cut, which is actually what I'm gonna trim these into. And the only difference is they just look neater and cleaner, like they've already been taken care of for you. But save yourself a few bucks and learn how to trim it yourself. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Louis, our process of doing this show is we pound a bunch of drinks and then we just record and stumble our way through it each episode. However, I thought it'd be a really good idea for this episode of Poor Choices to put Louis, who's currently drunk, with my camera, which is currently expensive, on a ladder, because I really want you guys to see how to trim this properly. So Louis, get on that ladder and let's get to going. Out of the packaging, just wash it off lightly, pat it down with a paper towel. This is our rib. This is a full pork spare rib. So one of the first things we need to do is get some of this excess off, because I want to square these up some. So what I'm going to initially do is I'm going to kind of feel around. I'm looking for where the longest bone ends, which typically is going to kind of be like around this third bone. What I'll do is I'll take my rib, I'll line it up here, right with my cutting board, so I know that this is a straight line. And then I'm going to kind of just put my cut there, and then I'm going to turn this around, keeping that line straight. Again, I've got this as my reference. I'm just going to come down like this. These are your rib tips. You can still cook this. You can throw this on the grill at the same time as these. This is delicious. Or if you want to, throw in a Ziploc bag and save it for something later. What I'm going to do now is just clean up this end real quick. And it's okay to lose a bone or two. I think right there is where I want to be. And that's essentially a St. Louis cut. Now, we've got this little flap right here. I'm going to trim that off. So right now, this little shiny part right here, this is a membrane. If you go to a restaurant, usually what they'll do is they'll just score it because they don't have all day to take this off. But I like to take this off because one, I want my seasonings to get into all the meat. And also like this sometimes can just be like a tough thing to chew. What I like to do is take my knife here, go under this, just kind of loosen it up. Paper towel, grab the membrane, and just start pulling it. Sometimes it pulls all the way off in one pull. Sometimes you have to kind of go back a few places. Obviously this is going to happen with this one, but you see the difference between how this meat looks now versus this meat. So this is the membrane. That's what this whole little guy right here is. And I'm telling you, with the paper towel, so much easier to take it off. I'm going to say there's nothing wrong with leaving it on. Some people prefer it on. Some people don't care. It's a cool thing about barbecue. Everybody has their own way of doing it. As long as it tastes good, who cares? Let's flip it over and just check. I like the way this is looking. There's just a little bit of fat up here that I can just go ahead and trim off. That looks good. I'm gonna trim up this other one real quick, and then we're gonna get into seasoning and also our method for doing this. Okay, both of our ribs have been trimmed, they've been squared up. But right now, we're gonna season these up, starting with a binder. I'm using yellow mustard, and let me just say this is not for taste. When it comes to binders, it's really just so the seasonings can stick, and you don't need a lot. So we're gonna hit this backside right now. I'm kind of experimenting with a recipe today. You can keep it as simple as just salt, pepper, garlic, or you can go all fancy with all types of rubs. I'm mixing up 2 rubs today because I want something that's a little bit sweet and spicy. I'm gonna start out with a honey chipotle rub from Our Butts Are Smoking. We're just gonna start with just a light layer.
I like that name.
Our Butts Are Smoking? Yeah.
Our Butts Are Smoking.
So we're gonna come down, hit that. So we got that light layer, and then I'm coming back with this rub called Yardbird Rub. Now this is more of a traditional barbecue. The honey chipotle is more for the actual flavors, the sweet and the heat. And then this one is coming more for those traditional barbecue flavors as well as some color. We're gonna come back around with a layer of that. Feel pretty good. And with barbecue rubs, I'm not actually rubbing it in. I'm just gonna pat it into the meat. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna allow these to rest for about 10 minutes or so. What I want is for these to begin sweating. And what you'll see in a few minutes, once we start rolling again, is the difference in the meat. And at that point, we'll flip these over and we'll work on the meat side. And something I want you guys to remember is the meat side and the back side, because I'm gonna do a lot of meat side down, meat side up references. So right now, this is the back of the ribs. This is where the shape of the bones are most exposed. That is the back side. When we flip it over to the meatier side where no real formation of bones is there, that's meat side. All right, our ribs have been hanging out for about 10 minutes. As you can see, and hopefully this shows up on camera, like this area right here, that's the sweat that I'm talking about, where it kind of starts to get a glisten. What we're gonna do is flip these over, repeat the exact same process on the other side. But because this is the meatier side, we're gonna go a lot heavier on our seasonings. Like most things in barbecue, ribs, pork butts, brisket, they can handle a lot of seasoning. This is our first layer. And again, you don't have to layer it up. And then coming back with a second rub, again, going a lot heavier. And with this side of the rib, you're definitely gonna notice the sweat a lot more than the other side. So once we get this coated, now is a good time to get your grill preheating. We're gonna be running our smoker at 275 today. Let's talk about how we're gonna cook these ribs. When it comes to ribs, especially when you're starting out, the easiest way to do them is using a method called the 3-2-1 method. That's 3 hours in the smoke, uncovered, 2 hours wrapped up in foil to tenderize the meat, 1 hour out of the foil to, if you're putting barbecue sauces or anything on there to kind of like tack back up. That is a foolproof method, but it's not the perfect method because every pit cooks differently. Every rack of rib cooks differently. So it says 3-2-1. It may only take 2 hours to get your ribs to a good place where they're ready to be wrapped up. It may only take 1 hour in the wrap before they're nice and tender and they're hitting that 200-degree, 205 temperature range. And then it may only take 15 minutes on the grill afterwards in order for the sauce to kind of set on it. As you cook more and more ribs, you'll start to kind of understand where they are and where they should be before you're moving on to the next phase. So what I'm gonna do right now is as these build their sweat, I'm gonna get my grill fired up to 275. I'm using my Traeger today. It's a wood pellet grill. It's gonna be a blend of like cherry, hickory, and some other stuff. If you're using a charcoal grill, get your coals nice and hot, get it stabilized at 275. Throw a chunk of, maybe like a chunk or two of like some hickory wood on there. You could also do apple wood, but just make sure you have a nice, good, clean smoke going. And then we're gonna get these on here. After the first hour on the grill, what I'm gonna do is check it and see if it's starting to dry out in certain places. If I see some spots that are drying out, what I'm gonna do is take just a little spray bottle right here, a little bit of apple juice. I'm gonna spritz it on there for 2 reasons. One, well, apple juice is just sugar water essentially. The water is gonna help keep it moisturized, and then the sugars are gonna contribute to kind of adding that sweetness that I'm looking for this particular recipe. You could just use plain water. You could do a mixture of apple juice and apple cider vinegar. You could create a whole mopping sauce. There's so many ways to keep this moist, or you could do nothing at all. I'm gonna let these continue to do their thing, get the grill fired up, and then once this is ready to go, we'll get on the grill, and then the fun part starts where we get even drunker because we don't have to do nothing else. So again, this is the sweat that we're talking about, and now I'm gonna get these guys on. Just gonna go straight up and back like that. Whatever cooker you're using, 275 indirect. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna bunch these up as much as I can and straighten them out, because however you set them right now is how they're gonna cook. So if they're crooked, they're gonna cook crooked. But I'm gonna set the timer for 1 hour, because at the 1 hour mark, I wanna come here, I wanna check it for color. I also wanna check it and see if it's drying out in any places. And at that point, I'll spray it with my apple juice just to kind of keep it moisturized and start building layers of flavor. As of right now, we just let it go we don't do nothing. All right, we are 2 hours in. I checked on these the first hour and I just gave them a spritz with my apple juice, and I'm about to do the exact same thing again. But I'm just looking at them. There's some pullback going on the bones. It'll happen a little bit more once we actually get wrapped. One of the bones is obviously coming out. One of the things I'm actually kind of looking for is if I touch it, will the rub stick to me? And actually right now, it's doing pretty good. But I know there's some of these areas where it's still not quite ready yet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spray my apple juice, and then I'm just gonna hit it with just a little bit of the honey chipotle rub. You don't have to do this, it's just I wanna build layers of flavor. And so this is gonna kind of help contribute to that. So a little bit there and a little bit here. Close this back up and we'll check back on it in probably like another 30 minutes or so. All right, it is barbecue sauce time. Feel free to buy your own favorite store-bought one if you can, but I just like making everything from scratch. And with this particular barbecue sauce recipe, it's gonna last you a good month. Just keep it stored in the fridge. We're gonna start with the basis of all barbecue sauces, which is just some fresh peeled tomato. I've got me a nice little 28-ounce can of tomatoes. And for those of you who have made barbecue sauce before, you may be used to the typical way of like, it's butter, it's your onions, it's your garlic, then you put like 2 cups of ketchup in there, and then you start adding other stuff. I'm just going for a little bit more of a fresher taste. And I found this recipe on the internet and I added a few things to it and I really, really like it. So we're gonna dump this entire thing in our food processor. To our tomatoes, we're gonna add a 1/2 cup of some apple cider vinegar. We're also going to add a 1/2 cup of some honey. To this, we're gonna add a 1/2 cup of brown sugar, and then a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, a 1/4 cup of some pineapple juice, and then 1/4 cup of some sweet and hot mustard. You can use any type of mustard, but I feel like a flavored mustard is really good for this one. If I had access to a jalapeno mustard, I would absolutely grab that. 2 tablespoons of paprika, or paprika, whatever you want to call it. 2 tablespoons each of kosher salt and fresh cracked black pepper. Again, that's 2 tablespoons each. 1 tablespoon of some onion powder. I've got 1 tablespoon of some garlic powder, a tablespoon of some cayenne pepper. Lastly, I just want to add like 4 dashes of some Worcestershire sauce. All we're going to do is throw this food processor lid on, and we're just going to pulse it for about a good, I don't know, 15 seconds. Let's get a little taste. That's good. What we're gonna do after I pulse it one more time, transfer it to a saucepan, and then we're gonna simmer it for about 20 minutes, bring everything together. One more pulse. As you can see, it's a lot of barbecue sauce. We'll stir it around every now and then, and we'll check it, we'll taste it, see if there's anything else we need to add to it. But for the most part, that's your barbecue sauce. Easy peasy. Okay, it has been actually 3 hours. Now we're gonna start the fun process, which is wrapping our ribs, get them nice and tender. Some people literally just take the ribs, put it in the foil, wrap it, nothing on it, throw it on the grill. This is the time where you can have a lot of fun with the flavor of your ribs. So what I have done is I've taken 2 sheets of just some heavy duty tin foil. What I'm first gonna do is just lay down a good layer of brown sugar, and I'm kind of looking at the size of this rib, and I'm gonna lay it down in what I think is the length of it. Don't worry if it's not perfect. I'm gonna take this barbecue sauce that I made specifically for this recipe, and I'm just gonna ladle just a little bit over the brown sugar. This is called rib candy. Apple cherry habanero. This is really, really good. It's gonna kind of play it into a little bit more of the spice that we have going on. Don't need a lot. Don't need a lot at all. Literally just gonna do 1 pass and then 1 more pass. Now what I'm gonna do is take our rib and I'm gonna place it meat side down on this. There we go. And I wanna keep it meat side down. Now on the other side of this rib, all I'm gonna do is just add just a little bit more barbecue sauce. And then I'm just gonna take a little bit more of this honey chipotle rub, and I'm just gonna hit it. I'm just gonna take this, fold it over, tuck it, bring it out, bring the other side out. I want these tight. Bring it there. And then I'm actually just going to do a big fold, a half fold, and then over. Because at some point I'm gonna have to unwrap this and check it, and I don't want to have to be doing all that stuff. So feel where my rib is. I'm gonna do a half fold, and bring it over. That's our first rib. I'm gonna do the exact same thing with the next rib. And then they're gonna go back on the grill, still at 275. At this point, they're not taking in any more smoke. That's why we add the flavors into this wrap. They're not gonna take on any more smoke. They're just gonna sit on the grill. And after the first hour, I'm gonna open it up. I'm gonna check it with my thermometer and see where it's at. There's a lot of visual cues, as in like the meat is pulling back from the bones. Got this. Let me get another sheet of tinfoil down and then back on the grill. And I'll meet you guys when we get to that one stage. It's been an hour into our wrap. I just checked them. I want to check them one more time because even though this is the 2 part of the 3-2-1 process, after an hour, they're already at the temperature that I want to get them to. So I'm going to open this up one more time. Woo. I'm going to temperature probe check them one more time. As you can see, a lot of disintegration on the bones. That's exactly what we're looking for. That's how we know this meat's getting nice and tender. I'm just going to stick a few places, 200. Exactly what I'm looking for right there. Be careful because these will break on you. Do that. Bring them right here. Now, what I am going to do here for this last little part of the cook, what I'm gonna do for this top side is take just a little bit of this barbecue sauce. It's still warm from earlier when we made it. And I'm just gonna lightly touch the top right here. And then I'm gonna give these about 20 minutes or so, just so this can set. That's all I'm looking for with this barbecue sauce. 20 minutes, we'll be right back to check on it. And I'll bring it down and then we'll get them served up. And we have our finished product here. Cheers to these ribs. And now it's just the time to cut into it. I let it rest for about 5 minutes because I didn't want to burn my fingertips, as I do it every single time I do one of these episodes. I'm just going to do these 1 bone slices and I'm just following the bones here. I got it sliced up. The last thing I did was I just brushed it with a little bit more barbecue sauce, just because that's the way I like it. You don't have to do that. So let's go ahead and give these a try. Again, first time ever doing this recipe, so I am risking a lot here. And that's good. Matter of fact, when I was making this, I was like, man, I hope I get that right balance of sweet and spices. I probably have sauce in my face, but I don't care. Because I can get carried away with spice, but man, this came together really, really good. That honey chipotle balance is perfect. Hold on. Let's check it for poison. No poison there. Might be a little here, hold on. Only thing I would have wanted to do differently was do this on my charcoal grill. Charcoal is just like an extra flavor added to the wood that I was using. The only reason why I didn't use my charcoal grill is just because literally I had more pellets than I had charcoal and I didn't feel like buying more charcoal. That's the only reason why I decided against it. Otherwise, this would have been really, really good on there. It's still good, it's still delicious. The honey, the chipotle, everything comes together just perfect. I'm really happy with that wrap. This might be my go-to for a while. Cooking ribs is about finding what works for you. And I think that's kind of part of the fun, is figuring out that Rubik's Cube of what really makes it work. Poor Choices Kitchen. Remember, 3, 2, 1. Foolproof method. And yeah, man, summer's upon us. This won't be the last of the barbecue ones. I plan to do a pork shoulder, some more burgers, some more chicken wings. So stay tuned. I was full from earlier and I didn't think I was gonna eat more, but yeah, no, I'm gonna absolutely just demolish this right now. Poor Choices Kitchen, see you next time.